manage his or her enterprise viably and interfacing the market, whether to buy or to sell, you can't be expecting a viable repayment from that farmer. So reduce production risk. The NABARD survey reports that 53% had crop failure. 28% have suffered pest attack on their crops. Unfortunately, the government of India has recently made crop insurance voluntary. Earlier, it was tied to bank credit loans for farmers. So we had reached 25 to 30% of the gross crop area being insured. But now, when you make it voluntary, with given lack of awareness and resistance of fear among farmers, my guess is that the insured area will further come down to maybe 10 or 15% of the total. The other is the market risk. Only 6% farmers get minimum support price. It's declared for 30, 40, 25 crops. It is implemented in half a dozen maybe states for different crops, but only 6% because the windows are short, payments are delayed. There are other sectors and actors which don't want the farmers to go through the system and so on. And of course, getting new market channels for farmers. Farmer should have choice to sell wherever he or she gets the best price, whether contract farming or direct purchase or private wholesale market or farmer consumer market. All this is available now under the model acts of the government of India. And some states have already passed their own legislation to get this channel for farmers. One can even think of giving credit incentives for those players from the private sector or public sector who work with the farmer directly, for example, in contract farming, either with specifically smallholders or groups of smallholders. So one could incentivize that. One, that you'll be able to reach credit to them. Second, you'll be able to promote a new channel for the farmers, be good for everybody in that area. So this is what I have to say. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Now we can open it for questions and my responses to that. I'll just stop sharing.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that wonderful discussion, deliberation. It was very detailed. So we'll take up questions by the participants one by one. The first question is from Ananti. It's from RBI. Good morning, sir. Your suggestions on the mitigating the diversion of loan to non-productive purpose. In KCC, consumption need is also included in arriving at a limit which has not stopped the diversion to purposes other than the purpose intended.
Yeah.
Second, you said PSLC is not a good practice. I agree to an extent, but don't you think it works on the law of competitive advantage? Who gets credit is important rather than the giver. Your thoughts?
What is PLC?
PSLC.
PSLC.
Yeah.
It's written somewhere here. No, I didn't get the second question, Sandeep.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Let me, Ananti, can I unmute you?
Yes.
Ananti, yeah, please, you can go ahead asking a question.
This is priority sector lending certificate that you are speaking about trading in case of shortage of the PSL targets set by the RBI. They can set up.
Okay, what was the question about it?
Like you said, it's not a
you're saying it's all market competitiveness.
Yeah, market competitiveness. And somewhere, say for instance, if a bank has more expertise in giving credit to a certain sector, so they can concentrate on that. So yeah.
Okay, should we collect more questions? Should I answer this, Sandeep?
Yeah, there is a next question which has been asked by Senthil Morgan, asking whether farm credit will increase production cost, then at what %?
Farm credit will increase production cost?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I'll bring it to you a few more questions, we can perhaps take it then one by one. Now, this is a very contemporary question. After COVID, people are coming back to rural areas. Under such situation, do you think that agriculture can be used as a sector to increase employment in case of Bihar, and how?
Okay. Shall I respond?
Yeah, you can respond.
Okay. Okay, let me address on these questions first. See, when I was sort of looking at the PSLC, it's fine to appreciate the efficiency of certain banks as against others, but to me it's like proxy attendance or proxy voting. Why should everybody not be asked to do their job? Yeah, so banks, each bank should have this. Then we'll be able to cover more of it rather than trying to manage by borrowing and selling and so on. Every bank should make enough efforts to meet the target. It's for every law of the land is same for everybody. Why should some be asked to just buy it up and do the sort of quota filling rather than doing it on their own? So that is, to me, it's a kind of not a very good practice to allow this. Of course, one can debate it further. The second part, you're talking non-productive needs being part of the KCC, and still you are saying people are using it for non-productive purposes. Yeah. So that is the limitation of this kind of bulk lending under KCC, that we assume that farmers are the rational decision makers. But once you have the entire money available to farmer and there are certain seasonal needs, then it's and farmer is always hard pressed for money. So you have chances of, I would not call it misuse, I'll call it like different use. Or use for the purpose other than the meant. And you're saying since consumption is part of it, one can only say that maybe little more is used for consumption rather than production. Therefore, to that extent, production efficiency gets compromised. Yes. Therefore, I think, I don't know whether we can even think of going back to crop-specific, enterprise-specific loans rather than, and you can have a small component under KCC which is meant only for consumption or other health and education needs. Maybe one can talk of those also as priority sectors under this. So I would not like to say more than this at this stage. The question on production costs going up because of farm credit, only to the extent that you have to pay interest. And interest, as I mentioned, Senthil, is 0% in many states, or 2 or 3%. So interest cost is not very high. What I was referring to was the transaction cost, that the cost involving of that loan through the you have to make, the shiparish you have to bring to get that loan, or the bribe you have to pay. I know personal stories of people who have paid in the past for capital investment loans for non-farm enterprise, which was as high as 25% total cost of the project. I told that person, how would you make it viable? He said, no, it will be possible because I have so much potential demand and this and that. You won't believe, within 4 years, that person known to me not only had to become defaulter, had to sell that vehicle, but even had to sell off his land to get rid of that loan he had taken. So that's what I was talking about, the backward forward linkage, proper assessment of the project, and then therefore monitoring and so on. So if you're talking about that kind of cost, then definitely it can be very high. But otherwise, when talking crop loans, the interest cost is not high. The transaction cost, which is very high, which needs to be lowered. Now on the post-COVID question, I think very important question. I'm happy somebody has asked this. My personal view, which may be different from the common or the popular view about agriculture, is that in this country, we need to sustain people in and around agriculture for another couple of decades, if not more. And agriculture has the potential to engage people, provided we take it to a higher level. And at that higher level, what I mean by that is that if we can start treating agriculture as agri-business, then the numbers about the contribution of this sector to GDP change. It goes as high as 25% plus. Now, World Bank has also accepted this last year, that we should not talk of agriculture as a declining or dying sector, which is contributing only 1/7, 1/8 of the GDP, and you have 46% people sitting there and so on. If we say that no, whatever happens around agriculture in agri-business, processing, distribution, retail, procurement, so on, it's also because of primary production sector and allied sectors. So if you take that perspective, then there's a lot which can be done, which can engage people in the farm sector. the saying of people moving to their places of origin, I think immediate thing would be to focus, I would say, on NREGA. Yeah, that we should expand and enforce NREGA at the local level much more intensively and carefully in terms of its effectiveness. It's one thing to implement NREGA program, other is to ensure that it leads to good use. So that be immediate thing. But otherwise, agriculture, yes, there could be a lot of agricultural operations or activities or enterprise which could be set up, which could engage more people if these projects and enterprise could be in local areas. Yeah, what I call local agribusiness. So that has a lot of potential. We need to explore that. We need to plan it out. Today only I was reading some reports from different states saying that in some states, governments are now taking charge of things. They are saying you would not grow this crop in more than this area. Yeah, you would grow this crop only in this season. And so there's a lot of distortion in the production sector. One is not saying that no problem there. So once we attend to that, you can make a lot of agricultural resources like water available to larger sections of population, larger land mass. And then you can engage much more people. See, when I said small farmer is the most efficient unit of production in rural or agricultural sector, that person is still doing that despite all the structural constraints he or she is faced with, whether irrigation, 60% is dry land farming, or lack of access to credit, lack of access to extension or technology, and of course lack of access to markets. So despite all the constraints, if they're able to produce most efficiently, I have all the faith in that segment of the population, and we can really generate more employment in Indian agriculture for next few years, if not decades, because we have not exploited the full potential of Indian agriculture. Yes, please. Can we, Sandeep, any more questions?
Yeah, there are more questions. There are more questions coming up. I'll just unmute Ananti for one more question she wants to ask. Ananti, you will have to unmute yourself and you can go asking your question.
Good morning, sir, once again.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah, this is, sorry, good afternoon.
I got so already.
So much engrossed in your lecture, that's why.
Thank you.
See, now this crisis, the current crisis, as current pandemic, it has really a devastating effect on the entire food supply chain. How do you, in your views, impact of this crisis on small and marginal farmers, especially from the credit perspective, since the lecture is all about credit. So from credit perspective, how do we intervene? And one more question, since I have unmuted myself, post-COVID, you are speaking about, say, in world over, the economic growth, how do you view? We have different stages of development where it is service-oriented and manufacturing-oriented. That's why the more we go towards development, the agriculture, the importance or the share of agriculture to GDP, gets reduced. That's how the economic growth about the Western model of economic growth is.
Okay.
In what way? I always think right from my college days, I have a view, why do we have to follow the Western model? Because our Indian economy is different. We have an agrarian economy, the entire Western model. How do we sustain based on, an agrarian economy also can be developed? How do we do that? In case if we can, that's
sure. Very good question. Maybe let me just attend to it, then we'll take more questions. I think let me attend to the second question first. See, it's all well known, the structural transformation process of economies. We are also on that route. Only thing that we have gone to service sector without doing enough of the manufacturing sector growth and development. But it will be surprising for some of you to know that there are countries which have been able to sustain employment and incomes by focusing on agriculture and agribusiness. So they have not really moved on to industrial or service sectors. They have been able to raise their incomes of population by focusing on agriculture. Kenya is one of them because they are into high value exports of crops and farm products. So that is one. The other part of this, why I'm saying this, that when I say that sustain people in agriculture sector for some more time. One, that you don't have much hope in the service and industrial sector for new employment generation now. The second, the kind of thing I have proposed, it's more about using agricultural diversification or crop diversification as a bridge to move to industrial stage. So what I'm proposing is some kind of agro-industrialization or agri-business development, which can not only sustain you for some more time until you are able to get on going with the new employment in the two other sectors, but it will also slowly move you, gradually move you towards industrialization, which be agro-based. Yeah. So that is how I look at it. That's why I propose for focus on agri and agri-business for some more time to attend to problems of not only income, but also employment. I hope I have attended to that question partly. The COVID part, yes, credit, naturally, when people have lost a lot of their, not only crops and sources of livelihood, you would need to give more credit support. Yeah, credit support, which is reasonably priced, as I said earlier. So maybe you will have to have more interest subventions or low interest rate kind of provisions and so on, rescheduling of loans and things like that. You'll have to do it for a couple of crop seasons. There's no escape from that. But one could be also like specific about instead of doing it in a blanket manner. I know in this country it's difficult to do anything in a targeted fashion. So, but if one can take the daring step that everybody need not be given this, we have limited resources, we would rather prioritize it. So if we can do that and deliver that in terms of implementation, we would have attended to the problem to a large extent.
Right. I'll take more a couple of questions further. So one more is asked by Mr. Devachandra. I'll unmute you, Mr. Devachandra. You can go on asking your question. Yeah, please go.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Actually, I'm presently working as assistant professor in one of the College of Horticulture under Central Agriculture University. And I'm happy to share that I worked in State Bank of India as a horticulture technical officer for 10 years. And I was among those category who pursued to give more credit, need-based credit to the agricultural sector. However, few of the challenges come, to be very frank and honest, debt waiver or interest incentives. When such things are given to the loanee or the person who take loan, distortion happens because those who need loan do not get loan, and those who are getting loan are the persons who hardly all the time engage with agriculture. So my intention since then had been, why don't we go for incentivization of the inputs? Because the farmer need XYZ components.
Yeah.
Those components should be incentivized in such a way that rich people or non-agriculturists do not need to purchase that one. So this will be my concern. And another part will be, sir, why don't we explore for the corporate guarantee type of things? Say a cooperative society or any institutions can come up as a guarantor in a corporate level. So some policy can be set up in such a way that, say, I'm advisor to one of the cooperative society as a honorary advisor. So such a cooperative society come up to the bank or financial institutions to offer corporate guarantor. Then I think bank will be comfort enough to lend. Otherwise, I don't think, sir, as an ex-banker, it's not that bank do not want to lend, but they are compelled to otherwise, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I think these are very important questions. Whether we should give DBT or loan waivers or cash transfers versus kind subsidies. I think I'm more for kind subsidies in the sense that one, because earlier Ananti talked about misuse of KCC based credit and so on, that if you look at sectors like fertilizer subsidy, the small and marginal farmers are able to get that subsidy very equitably, yeah, given their share in the cultivated land and so on. Also, you then make sure that the money, which is public money spent, goes into production of what we need, of agriculture crops and so on. which is the purpose of it, enhancing the yields and making sure that people use adequate inputs and so on. So that is, I would say, in some, we don't need to go into DBT all out. Yeah? If you're looking at role of credit, farm, agriculture, then you need to make sure that there are some elements and we need to retain. We don't need to throw baby with the bathwater. Yeah. But simply DBT, we don't need to do everything into other DBT. So we should continue some of that there. The other part, cooperative should stand guarantor for this loan. Now the problem with a lot of these people's or farmers institutions, whether cooperatives or producer companies, self groups, they don't have the capacity to give a collateral. Standing guarantor means you give collateral. That's why I propose value chain financing. That when you have somebody who's dealing with farmers in terms of buying or selling from them, that private or public player has assets and that person has direct business stake in this transaction. For example, a contract farming company, I have no cases where they stand guarantor. A tripartite agreement between the so do not have the guarantee the loan they get for their farmers. Five producer companies across 5 states. Very few producer companies are able to get public sector bank loans or cooperative sector loans. It is all depending on, they're all depending on MFIs and development agencies like FWW or others. So that is what I'm planning to say, that the bank should also do developmental credit. They say, I'm partner in this with you to get you going. Not that only you have everything in place, then only I lend you. That is never going to happen. Thank you.
So we do have time for last couple of questions. We know that Dr. Singh has been keeping very busy. He has been working on various projects for the present situation. He has been studying various aspects. Yeah. So I'll ask Abhishek Saxena. I'll unmute you. You may go on asking the question. Abhishek Saxena, please.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Abhishek Saxena. Thanks for the enlightening talk. My question is that recently, I think only yesterday, there were reports of Haryana farmers opposing the government order to limit paddy cultivation. You also talked about diversification. According to you, might be the ways to lead farmers towards diversification, and whether they can be incentivized or loans may be provided to farmers so that they are able to diversify.
Okay, no, I don't know why somebody should be opposing it. It's a voluntary participation invitation. The state is saying, I don't want you to keep doing water guzzling paddy cultivation. I'm willing to give you 7,000 rupees per acre cash incentive. I'm giving you a promise to buy at MSP, because they keep claiming that we don't have MSP for other crops. How do we go and take the market risk? So state is saying, I'll give you all the extension support. I'll give you MSP based procurement facility, and I'll give you 7,000 rupees per acre cash. I don't know what else a farmer needs to make this switch. I somehow find that this is perhaps one state in India which has taken this initiative, which was long due. Yeah. And I would even go to another extent of saying that the state should come in and play a role, saying if you want agriculture to move to an agribusiness kind of scenario and contribute to livelihoods of all stakeholders, we should move to what I call planned production and planned market. Like any other business, if you are just doing farming, doing crops without caring who is going to procure them, I think you are in a losing game. It's sad that even in states like Punjab, Haryana, where most of the procurement is focused, I've written about it also in somewhere else, that it is sad that FCI is happy procuring only from these 3 or 4 states, whereas FCI and MSP and procurement for the whole of the country. So these guys have been getting all the benefits. I'm sorry, I made this. So that after all, the benefits you have availed of, you don't want to just go out of it. And I personally feel, especially in Punjab, Haryana is also partly in that situation, unless Punjab gets rid of paddy in a big way, Punjab's farmers' problems cannot be resolved. You are only this seeder, that seeder. Today they are talking about a lucky seeder for sowing paddy. Earlier it was a happy seeder for sowing wheat in a standing stubble. So these are, I call half measures. They cannot give you the solution which is due, which is that if you want to solve the problems of farmer income, water saving in Punjab, ecological sustainability in Punjab, you have to, by and large, get rid of paddy. Until you bell that cat, you will not be able to move forward on that. And there is political economy dimension of that in states like Punjab, Haryana, that there are this commission agents, Aditiyas, many of them are also traders in food grains. They get commission 2.5% from FCI or any buyer who comes in to buy. They are ruling the rules. They are dictating terms in the system as if they are the primary stakeholders. The primary stakeholder of the state's farm sector are the farmers, not anybody else. Unfortunately, the farmer union also have a lot of sort of misgivings about some of these things one proposes. So to me, Haryana initiative is voluntary, welcome initiative, long due, and farmers should, to the extent possible. Only thing which I heard there which is problematic is that, which is not confirmed as of now, because not written on paper, saying that only if you commit 50% of your total area, you will get this, which I think is unreasonable. You should allow people to do even 1/20, half or 1/4 of the, just to try out if it's worthwhile to grow maize or cotton or mustard instead of this, then it should be fine. You should really push it beyond a limit. Anybody is willing, even in a small area, because a lot of people would not like to take the risk of, because there's a lack of trust of the state in terms of state being able to implement MSP and procurement effectively in crops other than wheat and paddy. So they are a bit wary of it, but it's a nice initiative. I think people should latch onto it. Thank you.
Right. So we would move on to the last question. I would turn on the unmute Dr. Naidu from Delhi. Dr. Naidu, you can go on asking your questions. Yeah.
Namaste, sir. I am from agrarian background. Actually, my question is generally now you can understand that what is the importance of the agriculture sector, right? So now some governments like Telangana, some Andhra Pradesh, some other state governments has to can take care of the farmers who can directly purchase their agriculture product instead of who can give the supporting project every time. Now you can understand that 1950, what is the importance of the agriculture sector? The same situation now can happen. What is the importance of agriculture sector? Why the government should like this? So no one can bother about the agriculture suicide, farmer suicide, right? Agriculture union supporting that, right? Agriculture union they can, right, conducting that so many years can provide the agriculture products. So what is the reason behind that? And please suggest that.
No, I don't think people like me had ever any sort of doubts about the role of agriculture and importance of agriculture in this country. To me, anything which supports larger mass of population is always important. It's more about livelihoods rather than whether you contribute 13% or 15% or 20%. But my discomfort with your markets, that is not the solution. It is surprising that people are even asking for MSP and state procurement for what I in Hindi call gajar mooli. That state should also procure vegetables at MSP. What are we getting into? Where is the end to this game? State is not even able to procure and store and distribute non-perishables like wheat and paddy, and you are asking state to procure perishables. Of course, there are schemes for limited purpose which are there in some states which are implemented. But to me, please remember, we should not forget the role of private sector in agricultural markets. I just mentioned one sort of negative or bad example of how state and unions can mess up things. Recently, under union pressure, Maharashtra made an amendment in its APMC Act saying anybody who procures below MSP, any private trader, will be penalized either in terms of going to jail for 6 months or a few lakh rupees of fine. Now tell me what crime a private trader has committed. The MSP is promised by the state, should be delivered by the state through its own agencies, whether FCI or CCI or NAFED or in local level agencies. Why should you put somebody else in trouble who has nothing to do with the MSP and procurement system? Within a week, the government had to withdraw that amendment because all the traders went on strike. So to me, let's not kill private trade in agriculture in a short-term attempt to ask the state to do everything. Many times I get disappointed that for everything we ask the state to do MSP and procurement. What is farmer's own job? Should farmers also not engage in marketing of their own produce rather than being only producers? To me, a farmer job is not over until you have properly sold, rather marketed your 6 months of hard labor. You can't say I've produced. Now, if you're not buying, I'll throw it on the roadside. That is not the real farmer we want to look at. There are farmers, I did 36 case studies of what I call small farmers, prosperous farmers. I can share that paper with you. These farmers had none of the state support, neither credit nor any of the other subsidies or whatever. They were not even part of any modern market arrangement like contract farming or supermarket chains and so on. But all of them were making a few lakh rupees per acre per year net profit because, and all of them, remember, all of them were operating less than 5 acres each because they were involved in the marketing of their produce. None of them, again I emphasize, none of them grew wheat or paddy. Now you can connect it to what I said earlier. So please, let's also look at what farmers and farmers agencies can do in order to help the farmer deal with the market rather than saying state should buy everything. I'll be happy if state continue to buy some of the things it's already doing. There are reports every now and then saying let's get rid of this thing now and leave it. So let's not pin too many hopes on the state. Yeah, let's try to set systems in place at the local and the regional level where farmers and their agencies can take care of some of these things and make markets work for them.
So if we can take one more question. Now we have been insisted by Mr. Pankaj Sethia. He's with RBI, he's DGM. So can we take one last question?
Yeah, sure.
Pankaj, I'll unmute you for a second. If you can quickly ask your question, please. Yes, please go ahead.
Dr. Singh, it was nice listening to you today. A small and brief question. Can moving agriculture to concurrent list help in solving some problems of the agriculture in India? Because of the state list and related APMC issues, they've been highlighted often as a trouble creating mechanism in India. So do you think moving it to concurrent lists could help? And is it possible? Do we have the necessary political will to do it? Thank you.
I think this is something which I don't want to talk about now because it is on the policy agenda. So let me not spill the beans. Yeah. sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, better.
Yeah, but this is an issue on the table now. Yes, it's an issue, but not agriculture because not agriculture, only agriculture markets.
Precisely, that's the more important part of where the
only markets, not agriculture. Agriculture, there's no major issue. Yeah, it's market part of it.
Because I think this is a long overdue measure. One nation, one market. We've all been talking only in theory. This should have been done maybe 30 years back.
No, it's a long overdue issue. But then simply because you are not able to do something at the state level doesn't mean that you also take over everything. How much center will do tomorrow? You will say agriculture also not working well at the state level. Let's make it under the concurrent or central list. So are we simply because the federal structure has some issues, should we just keep giving up federal systems in the country? That's my only sort of reservation about it. Otherwise, yes, we should be open to discussing and debating it.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I think we should wrap it up. We are moving towards 1 o'clock in the afternoon. and sir has agreed to be with us for around 1 hour, and he has kindly spent more than 2 hours
1.5
with us.
hours.
He joined at yeah 1.5 hours.
Started a bit late.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful deliberation. It was great having you. What we want to do through this particular initiative is to have deliver discussion of this kind, where we can spread some knowledge and as well as get our queries answered from the experts like you. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Steve, and
Now
thanks
most
to your
of
institution for giving me this opportunity to see so many known faces and many new friends. I hope it has been of some value. Thank
right,
you.
thank you. So many of them has actually communicated us that they faced some issues with the link. So if you can just subscribe to the YouTube channel, we would be uploading this video by today evening itself, so you can have the access to the complete video. Most of them joined very late to the session, so you can have the you can also take into consideration the first half of the session. And also, if you can join us through Twitter, then we would be able to update you on various other update you accordingly. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you, sir, again
Bye
for
bye.
joining.
All the best to all of you.
Thank you,
Be in
sir. Have a
touch.
good day.
Thank you.